Hey there! So today we have another old one on the bench here that we can hopefully bring back to life. The fun thing this time, I don't actually know what guitar this is or what model, but all I can really say right now is that it's most likely, or I'm actually sure it is East German, and I suppose it's a Migma, but I'm not exactly sure about the model. I think I found one singular picture of a guitar like this online, which did not have the pickup, but was otherwise identical. And it was on the website of some online shop, and they just labeled it as like Migma jazz guitar. So whatever, right? As you can tell, it's not your typical jazz box. It's a little bit thinner on the sides, so it's nice in between, nice lightweight design. The pickup is original actually, like a Relog pickup. Those are, yeah, pretty famous for that time. Okay, let's get right into it. The first things to notice are of course these beautiful like teardrop shaped, or I think sometimes even called like cat eye shaped sound holes. Very nice bit of design. Relatively standard trapeze tailpiece here. We don't have a strap button. In fact, there was like a acoustic style end pin in here which broke off. Some finish missing all around the sides, but a pretty nice, beautiful lacquer checking going on in the old nitro finish. Like the aging on that is beautiful, of course, if we look close up. As always, it just seems to be my luck. Somebody put nylon strings on this one, which doesn't make a lot of sense because it has a magnetic pickup here. But I think this is actually for the better because it means less tension in the long term. And since people tend to forget these guitars strung up on an attic for decades, I'd rather have nylon strings on there, even if they don't belong, just because it means less tension on the neck and on the body assembly and everything. The next thing we notice is the bridge. Pretty weird, huh? There's something missing? Yeah, it is. This is just the top part of a regular floating archtop bridge. Somebody put a piece of wood below that as a spacer, and the original bottom with the two thumb wheels for height adjustment is completely missing, unfortunately. This little rod here sticking out of the pickguard would have been attached to the bridge base, I suppose, to keep it from flapping in the breeze here. The fretboard has these pretty cool off-center dots, which I really like, and the binding on the sides has a little black purfling strip at the bottom, which also looks very classy. But look at the fretboard. What the heck is going on here? That for all the world looks like a softwood, and also feels like it. I mean, did they actually use like spruce for a fretboard? That's insane. I mean, it also has significant wear up here, like those are very deep, those divots here. Then on the headstock, those two black things here are just like decorative. They aren't inlaid. Those are actually like glued on top. Tuners seem to be original. At least those are like East German tuner models. And there's one button missing here, which we'll have to replace. The neck is very comfortable. Nice shape, actually. It's more like a D shape than a C, but it's nice and slim and feels more modern than the guitar looks, to be honest. If we check out the back, some more finish missing. Nice binding on the back as well. But I mean, in general, it's in great condition. We need to fix a few things, do some fretwork, and I'm positive that this guitar will be brought back to life and play. The neck is a 3-piece laminate, and yet again it looks like beech, which was often used for East German guitars. And yes, it is a bolt-on neck. It's held on with this singular, interesting square drive mechanism here. And one of the first steps after removing the strings will be to take off the neck. The original tool for that would have looked a little bit like a winding key, or like those you use in old radiators in a house to get the air out if you're living in Europe, you know those. But unfortunately, I went through my collection and I have a few of those, but they are all like a little bit too big or too small. For reference, if you ever come across a guitar, the square is 4 by 4 millimeters, and the inside diameter of this metal ring here is almost exactly 8 millimeters, so a little bit above, like 8.2 or 8.3. Luckily, I came across this like ancient winding key of an old like grandfather clock or whatever. It has a square drive on the bottom, and if I'm careful, it just about fits. So this should suffice to take the neck off. And the pickguard is attached to the neck somehow, so I will take off the guard first before I can remove the neck. Just some blocks of plastic glued on there. Oh, and note how the black line is just painted on, right? So let's do that very carefully here. Now the pickup is loose. We can carefully try to remove the neck from the body by using this old watch winding tool here. Yeah, it does turn, and there wasn't much tension on it in the first place. Yeah, it's starting to give. Okay, hold on. I think the weird bolt just started to turn itself loose here. That's quite different than I imagined. Look at that. It's just like a bolt with a custom head going on. The bottom is like regular, just regular thread. Okay, so the neck should come off, right? And it did. Okay. Let's get in for a closer look. The neck heel is just like a straight rectangular thing. There's no dovetail, nothing going on. You can really clearly see the line, like it sat inside the body up to here. And then there's nothing but just like a hole drilled through, which accepts this fun looking super long special bolt. I mean, they could have used a regular screw drive like a flathead or whatever, probably to keep people from messing with this or over tightening or whatever. And if we look at the body, oh, we see like, first of all, like a large crack in the neck block, which is not great. Then there's a fun little special nut sitting in here, which is slightly moving. Oh, so we might have some neck block issues going on there. And a hole up here. I don't know, that would have been just for a hook for painting, so they drilled in one of those little steel hooks so they can hang it. There might be some dislamination going on between the top and the neck block up here. Yeah, looks like some work. The tuners are completely without any bushings on the headstock overlay. And I don't think that's original, since the holes are like much larger than the shafts. So we need to find some bushings to put in there. We've already seen that there's one missing here. And it looks like we're missing a screw as well, but I have some spare parts for those, so I'm not too concerned. I think we can get a period correct replacement on there before we have to resort to some modern tuners. Now we can recover the electronics. That means removing the output jack here. This is the typical plastic output jack you see on many East German guitars, and those always crumble and disintegrate, just as we can see here. And notice how there aren't any volume or tone controls, nothing. This is just pick up straight to the output. So far, all screws on this guitar have been like the same size and type, which is unusual. Now, some persuasion required. There's this metal sleeve that was just catching on a little wood shaving. There we go. Interesting. This cable should be directly connected to the pickup, so we need to do some unsoldering in order to get it out. And there's the pickup. The famous Relok pickup. Some of the earliest East German designs. There were a few versions of this one. They also made like a rectangular surface mount one next to this fingerboard end version. And the third one would have been the pickup that sat directly below the fretboard, hidden. And last but not least, a little holder thing here for the trapeze tailpiece. Screws are moving, which is good. Sometimes they bind out from rust or something like that. And that's the first time we see a different type of screw on the guitar, flathead. I mean, they're all flathead, but this one is meant to be, how do you actually call those? Like countersink, countersunk, whatever. I don't care. And it doesn't even make too much sense on here, since they aren't nicely countersunk, they're sticking out. Notice how the guitar does not have a grounding wire. Usually you would connect the strings, usually via the tailpiece, to the ground of the circuit to prevent hum as soon as you touch the strings. They didn't do that here. Yeah, well, the first impression shows what looked like a quite a straightforward project at first has a few problems hidden under the hood. Pretty much as they always do, right? So what's the game plan on this one? Especially since it's a guitar without an adjustable truss rod, or without a truss rod at all, and with a pretty unusual internal bracing system. We'll take a look at that soon. My first and primary objective is to get a set of strings on there and to see how it moves and what it does under tension. And I will attempt to do that before I do any fret work or anything. Because if I figure out the neck wants to move in a certain way, I can compensate a little bit in the fretwork step. So what do I need for strings? I will have to fix the tuning machines. That means we have missing parts like the button and the ferrules here, which are missing, and make sure they work. The next step will be the bridge, which is just the top part and we are lacking the bottom part. And finally, the situation with the neck block here, the crack in there. So let's take a look at those things individually, try to figure them out, and then get a set of strings on there, see how the guitar reacts, and after that we can get into fret work and finishing and detailing and polishing and making everything look nice and work as it should. First things first, here we have the tuning machines with one missing knob here, a button, and I salvaged this one off of a broken old pair of the same tuning machines. It's just a tiny bit discolored, but we can live with that given that it's exactly the same profile and everything. So all we have to do in theory is heat up this shaft and then press this one on so it like melts into place. Next up, we'll have to find a solution for the missing bushings or ferrules up here, because as you can tell, the holes are already a little bit elongated and there's way too much movement on here. So yeah, what should we do? The shafts have a 5.5 millimeter diameter, which is a little bit less than standard, and usually they don't have those machined bushings in there you see on more modern mechanics or machines. But usually they have those almost rivet-like bent sheet metal type ferrules, similar to those ones here. This little brass one, which is just a 5 millimeter internal diameter, and I carefully widened it by beating it with like a concentric punch, and now it just fits over there. So check it out. And I think that looks pretty good. So let's make some more of those. Yeah, that will do nicely. The end of the neck heel has, I think, Roman numerals punched in, so it looks like 1X or 9, which would match this pencil 9 up here. I think so. And if we check the neck pocket, we can see a matching number. There's the 9 as well, just upside down. And there's the X1 or Roman 9. At first I thought those were additional cracks, but this is just like a deeply punched number. And now, if we check the bottom of the bridge, it says 94. Yeah, I mean, at least it confirms the 9, but whatever this means. Is it like model number 9? Was it made on like 9th week, 9th month? Made by luthier number 9 on workbench number 9? We'll never know. Part of the headstock overlay is loose, and again you can hear it just by tapping on it. Listen to how the sound changes. See? This corner here is loose. We have to do something about that. Just pulling some 400 grit sandpaper to clean out the glue joint a little bit. The bracing situation of this body is pretty unusual, at least I haven't seen this style before. For a regular archtop guitar you would expect to see two parallel not parallel, but like a little bit at an angle, two braces running like that. In fact, in this one we got pretty much regular flat top bracing on the bottom, so the bottom will have just like 3 letter style braces like this, all parallel. And on the top we have a situation where there is also, it starts off as a ladder bracing. You got a brace here, one just above the sound holes and one pretty much just below the sound holes. So these 3 ladder braces. But then there are 2 larger braces connecting the 2 ladder braces just from here to here. So ignore those overhanging parts of the skewers. And then like finger braces with a lower profile connecting on the outside of the sound hole. So like this. We got kind of like this grid arrangement as a support in a ladder braced instrument, which is first of all quite unusual, and second of all I have some loose brace ends in there and it's gonna be tough to reach down there through the sound holes, because honestly I really don't want to take the back off, so I have to see what I do about that. After some investigation, to recap here, I think one of those connecting braces, I got a loose portion on this end. On the other one, unfortunately, the back end is a little bit loose. And finally, we have a problem with the neck block up here. There's a crack in the neck block and the top has delaminated. Other than that, it doesn't look too bad. The top isn't sunken in very much. And as you can tell, there isn't a lot of arch going on anyways. So this should be serviceable. And if I end up gluing those little braces back to the top, we might push a tiny bit more curvature in there, we'll see. And same for the back, which has a gentle, steady curve going on. A little bit more than the top. We get the idea. Overall, it's not really an archtop guitar. Maybe this should be classified as kind of a thin line flat top with F-holes. Maybe, I don't know. Still a very interesting design. In case you were wondering about the dangling cable here, I just stuffed some LED strip in there so I can see what I'm doing. And it does help, since all the inspection in there is just happening through a mirror and it's pretty much impossible to film at the moment. Sorry for that. That special nut in here that's holding the neck on seems to be quite a bit loose. We can wiggle it. And I'm not 100% sure on how it works, but this thing appears to just be rotating freely while the center section is locked. Maybe this is like a nut that threads on there. On the inside, if you can make that out, there is like a recessed square, I think it's a nut on there. So we might be able to just tighten it. We can also see that the crack in the neck block does not extend all the way through. This is Turns out this part outside here is actually the nut, and this little, almost like a tube here, has internal and exterior threads, and this seems to be riveted to the square inside. So I rotated this, and as you can tell, we have now some exposed thread on here, and we can tighten that right up, that's no problem. With the neck block being loose from the top up here, I don't have too much issue because that would be easy to glue back down. The same with the bottom, there's a little bit gap there as well. This up here looks pretty rough, but it's actually just on the surface, so we can ignore that. This crack down here was giving me a little bit of a headache, and I did some probing around in there with feeler gauges and guitar strings, and it looks worse than it actually is. So if I check this out, this thing is just a few millimeters deep, roughly like the depth of the cutout up here until this washer nut thing starts. Usually you would try to clamp it like this from side to side to close it up, but in this situation here it's impossible. I tried a few things, but I cannot get the clamping pressure I need in order to move this gap at all. So I have to make a call now how I want to approach this. Since this is my very own guitar and it's not going out to a customer, I made the call to leave this vertical crack as it is and just monitor it. Here's one of the two loose brace ends, and I can just about reach this one with my finger through the F-hole. So this will be the usual business of cleaning it out and applying some glue and clamping it. This one is up here, so I can reach it. The other one is down here, which is a bit more difficult to reach. For that I have like this simple, quick homemade little clamp that should be able to fit in there like that. Stuck some sandpaper to one of these palette knife spatula things. So here's the clamping setup. The glue had time to cure overnight, and it appears the DIY clamp did the trick. So yeah, that looks pretty decent to me. You can just about see the other loose brace end in the back there. Now that the guitar body is fixed internally, we can start to worry about the bridge.